Thanks everybody for turning up. The last session of the day. We'll try and make it a little bit punchy and a little bit purposeful and get on with it. Look, I'm here to talk about Duketon. Duketon's an interesting story. We've been around for about 10 years. And everybody talks about structure and the quality of the company, but at the end of the day, we've raised money once in that 10 years. We have a healthy cash balance in the bank right now. We've got a good nickel project. It's not a great time to be a nickel, but it's a good project, and we're advancing that, and we've got a very good tail of exploration projects behind that are looking at all the future-facing commodities as this conference is all about. Look, there's a disclaimer there. You can look at that online. You obviously can't read that, but we need to put it up. This is the company, okay, and we're in very good shape. We're a West Australian-focused exploration company. We have 122 million shares on issue. We have just over $11 million in the bank. We've got a couple of $1 million of investments in there as well. We've got a very good structure around the shareholder base. We've got a guy called Kerry Hermanis, who's a nickel bull at the end of the day, holds a fair component of the company. We've got a small institution on the register, and then, quite importantly, directors and management hold about 11% of the company as well. Look, we are focused on the nickel project. It's important to us. We've got our foot on it. We own it 100%. It's unencumbered, and it's part of the story going forward. The other important part is, and the last point on this slide, is that we have a lot of embedded optionality in the company through exploration on other projects. And we've spent some time over the last few years collecting additional projects within WA, and we're now starting to pull those through to grant. They're becoming an important part of the portfolio, and I'll take you through those in the latter part of this presentation. Our nickel projects, sitting up through here, there's two resources, Rosie and C2, and I'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. 130 kilometres line of sight back towards Leinster and Mount Keith, which is BHP Billiton's nickel sulphide base in Western Australia, and that's one of the most prolific nickel belts in the world. And we sit on the next belt across from that, and within the Duketon area, there's a number of other holders there, but collectively there's about 400,000 tonnes of nickel metal in the ground, and we control a portion of that within there. The concentrators in the area are outlined here with the green dots, and we're not far away, and there's a little bit of infrastructure with respect to roads, etc., throughout that whole area. As I said, two large nickel deposits, 100,000 nickel tonnes in total combined in those JORC compliant resources, just a bit over 14,000 nickel tonnes. And importantly, and a real differentiator compared to most other nickel deposits in WA, we've got about 250,000 ounces of PGEs, predominantly in the Rosie deposit. We believe we've shown and proven that we can recover that through metallurgical testing that we've done. We've got a scoping study that only focuses on one of those deposits, Rosie. That's positive. It was done at $8 a pound, which is just slightly higher than what the current prevailing nickel price is, so it's still looking in good order. We've pressure tested that more recently over the last 6 months, and that's still, the assumptions within that still hold sure. This is the results of that scoping study. It's really points to a 8-year mine life. It's a mining and toll treating study. So it's not talking about building a plant on site, but it's just trucking to one of those nearby concentrators. We ranged it between $7.50 and $8.50 nickel price. You can see the MPV, and ultimately the takeaway from this is that it's highly leveraged to that nickel price, and every 50-cent movement in the nickel price as it goes up is worth about $50 to $100 million of free cash flow to this project, so it is highly leveraged to that, and it's has a very low capital intensity as well. So you can read up there, it's $18 million to get into this project, and that's simply it's a portal and the first part of a decline to get down to the first bit of ore. That's a very simple project, and ultimately we can produce around about 300,000 tonnes at about 2% nickel equivalent out of this project on an annualised basis, without even considering the other deposit we've got close by. This is what looks like in 3D. I'll just run this short video so you can get an idea. The red dots up there are all the nickel intercepts. The drill holes are the black traces. That's the 1% nickel outline for Rosie. I'll give you a sense of how large this deposit is as it rolls around. It's just a little bit over 1 kilometre long, 700 metres depth that we've drilled it to. This is the mining study that we've done, so we've done all of the decline, the stopes, everything else. These orange panels are the EM targets, so the proxy for the exploration upside in Rosie. We think this will continue as we continue to drill it without any hesitation at all. And you can see C2 as we'll just focus on off to the north here. It's a slightly different beast. It's a large, low grade, open pittable resource, still 900 metres in strike, open in all directions. We've got an optimised open pit over the top of that, and I think combined those two, both an underground and an open pit, make up an operation that makes sense to us. Just a quick look at the geology. This is a couple of drill holes through the middle of Rosie. It's a very standard pyrrhotite, pyrite, chalcopyrite-rich nickel sulphide deposit like many of the ones in Western Australia. The defining feature, however, is that large budget of PGE elements within that. And you can see some of those numbers through there. It's wherever we drill it, it's multiple grams per tonne of PGEs within this. Both those deposits got positive metallurgical results, and look, at the end of the day, they both produce what we call a saleable concentrate. It's a pretty simple flow sheet on both of them. We've done a little bit of extra work on those, but we believe there's a lot of scope to actually refine them and tighten them up as well. We've done a little bit of work in the nickel sulphate and towards producing an MHP product out of both of those. So just to take you through this, that's the concentrate dried out from C2 in this particular instance. This is the pressure vessel that you put it in. You put the concentrate in, you put some water in with it, you bring the temperature and the pressure up slightly. It's not very high pressure, and ultimately that forces the nickel, copper and cobalt into solution and into what's called nickel sulphate, which is that green liquid through here that you can see in these vessels. That was run over a 2.5 hour period, but most of the nickel and associated metals went into solution within the first half an hour. The PGEs in Rosie, and the reason we're looking at this is whether we can strip out the PGEs separately, and they will either, and we've got a little bit of flexibility in this, we can actually put it into the nickel sulphate and put them into solution, or we can actually hold them back and leave them in the residue, which is that brown material at the end. So that's the end product of all of this. And we can hold the PGEs back in there and then do a simple processing method from there as well. So we've got flexibility within this, and ultimately we're talking about getting into the precursor of battery options. Just turning our attention a little bit to other projects around the place that we've held, and all of these are in Western Australia, and all of these are future-facing metals to bulk them all together, but there's a whole bunch of lithium, gold, rare earths, base metals within that portfolio, and I'll just take you through them pretty quickly on an individual basis. But Barlee, which is basically 200 kilometres north of Southern Cross in Western Australia, it's in one of the greenstone belts. 100 kilometres south of Southern Cross in the same greenstone belt is the Mount Holland lithium deposit. We see a trend all the way up the edge of this belt, which is highlighting a lithium trend. There's lithium indicators all the way through that, and more recently in the last few days, Venus Metals, which holds a tenement just off the top of this page here, have been delivering some results which are multiple tens of metres at plus 1% lithium in pegmatites, and we think that's probably indicative of what that whole trend can hold. We were actually looking at high-grade gold deposits, which are analogue for the Penny West deposit. So we've got a couple of different elements that we're chasing within this particular tenement package. We like this, we're continuing to build it, and we'll continue to work it as well. Doris, it's a historical name, but that's what it is, Doris. This is a uranium play. It's a hard rock uranium play in the northern part of the Yilgarn Crater in Western Australia. Geometry-wise, it's analogous to a gold deposit. It's shear-hosted, has uranium within the shears. It has some historical drill holes in it, which look pretty good to us. We've got our foot on top of this. We're just being a little bit cautious with it. We're waiting for the legislation to be changed within WA to allow a little bit more positive uranium mining before we do very much with this, but we kind of like it from a prospectivity and an exploration upside perspective. Stevens is a base metals play that we've got up in the Gullerwood Greenstone Belt. The deflected gold deposit, which Silver Lake are mining at the moment, is just to the north of this. This has got a VMS signature all over it, in our opinion. There's a lot of work still to be done. We'd like to build this tenement position around this particular occurrence as we have it, and we think there's more to be won out of this particular position. Otways is one of my favourites. It's actually still under application at the moment. We expect it to get granted in the next month or so, essentially, and then we'll get on the ground in earnest. But some of the historical numbers on this, and the reason I like it, it's a copper play. Back in the 60s, there was numbers like 64 at 0.7%, 64 metres at 0.7% copper, 48 metres at 0.62, close to surface, all hosted in fresh rock. And more recently, in 2020, there's a historical hole that had a 43 metres at 0.7% copper as well in the same general area. So it gives you a sense of scale, fresh rock components of copper occurrences within this project. And throughout this entire tenement, we're getting rock chips of high-grade gold and high-grade copper all over this. So it actually is a very, very interesting play, and it's got a little bit of lithium potential as well, which I won't talk about just now, but we'll get to that. Well, Gulen, which is the last project that I'll look at, talk to. This is in the wheat belt. It's basically halfway between Perth and Southern Cross. The closest mine is the Edna May mine, which Ramelius Resources are mining, which is a gold mine, which is off to the down just off this plan here, but that drilling is relating to the regional work at Edna May. There's a number of anomalies up through here, and this is we put this in the bucket of a base metals play at this point in time. There's significant historical intercepts on this tenement, and these are all close to surface. So I'll read a couple off. 96 metres at 3 grams per tonne silver and almost half a percent zinc. 93 metres at 4 grams silver, a little bit of lead and indications of zinc, and another 30-metre intercept of 1.6 grams per tonne silver. Looks pretty interesting. We get excited about this. I think once it comes through as a granted position, we'll get on the ground and get going with this. In summary, we think Duketon's in really good shape. We've got lots of money in the vehicle. We've got a very tight share structure. We're highly leveraged to any outcome, whether it's in the nickel space, exploration space, or anything else that we do. We've got a really, quite a small market cap, relatively speaking, and we can really take off if we get a little bit of success. Thanks very much for everyone. That's the end of the talk.